Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Backup Blue Shirts. This is episode 9, Brendan. Episode 9. And we have a special guest, another special guest on the podcast this week. This time, Rick Carpiniello from The Athletic. Rick, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Good. How does it feel to be on Backup Blue Shirts?
It's really awesome. It's one of my highlights already.
I think we just made your day right there.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on, though, and talk about the Rangers.
I'm glad the trade deadline's over, so I'm doing really well.
Yeah, so am I. No more heartbreakers.
We were sweating there for a while too, but yeah, well, I think we got what we kind of expected a little bit with the Rangers. You know, I think we knew that they were going to trade Zuccarello and Hayes and McQuaid, and
we did, and we knew for months. I mean, pretty much since last July, we knew about Hayes, and we didn't know about McQuaid till they got him. But as soon as they got him, we thought he was going to be an asset at the deadline.
Yeah,
and we assumed that they would certainly explore trading Zuccarello all season long. And when it became apparent that they were, we expected a second and a prospect. So they got pretty close to what they wanted on all three trades.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it hurts to see Zuccarello go. I think all Rangers fans are kind of like, so it's sad, but I think it kind of had to happen. I think they had to move him out because he's free agent at the end of the season. So I feel like they had to make a move on him and Hayes because they don't want him to walk. You know what I mean?
Right, and they didn't want to go to the numbers that they had gotten from their agents in the little bit of talking that they did. Hayes last summer and Zuccarello very recently. So they weren't going to re-sign those guys at those numbers. And if you're in a rebuild, then you better not let your unrestricted guys go for free.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we can't let a John Tavares situation play out again.
I honestly feel like that John Tavares situation is kind of like a lesson for the rest of the NHL. Like, hey, you know what? If you're ever in that situation, I think they have to put the force on the players, and you know what? You're better off getting something for them. And luckily, the Rangers. The Rangers got a nice pull for both all three guys, really.
Yeah, and last couple of years ago, they thought they were still legitimate, and they let Keith Yandel walk.
Exactly.
Because they thought they were going to make another run, and they were so wrong at that time.
Yeah.
That team was done. I mean, that window was closed, and so they let him walk for nothing, and fine, but if you're gonna rebuild, then this is how you rebuild.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So before I get to the first serious question, the first joke question, did you cry when Zook got traded? Because I cried twice.
I only cried because it was late at night. I was on a train almost to Washington, and I knew that I was going to be eating dinner in my hotel room instead of at a restaurant because I had to rewrite my story. So other than that, I didn't cry at all.
All right, fair enough.
Not like Mike over here. He was a little upset. I think Zuccarello is probably one of his favorite players that he had over the years.
Yeah, but I knew it was coming.
You guys saw the Lundqvist clip.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My gosh,
Yeah, that actually I think ripped me up a little bit more than Zuccarello actually getting moved. I feel like anytime we see something happen to Lundqvist, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I was semi okay, and then once I saw the video of Lundqvist, that's what really killed me.
Yeah.
All right, so
and we've never seen that side of him either. We saw it with guys like Messier, who cries every 5 seconds. But, we've never seen that with Lundqvist.
I know. I was a little unexpected. He didn't even have an answer, really. I think they actually did him the credit too. They cut right to commercial too. They were like, this guy can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, he was done. Yeah.
All right, so the first serious question: were you surprised that only the quote unquote top 3 got moved and not somebody else on the roster?
Yes, I was, because I thought there was a lot of interest in Nemesnikov, and there was a fair amount of interest in Freddie Claesson. So I thought there was more coming, but there was no discussion really on trade deadline day for Kreider. And there was also a jackass report that said Columbus was asking about Lundqvist, which is totally untrue.
Yeah, I didn't believe that either, because that just would have made absolutely no sense for them whatsoever.
Of course. I mean, let's be realistic. They have a rental guy that they're going to lose for nothing, and they're going to go get a 37-year-old. So, yeah.
Yeah, an older goaltender who's making more money.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So
when you see rumors sometimes, you literally just have to think about them for a second. You're like, hold up, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. There were no other real surprises. I thought Jeff Gordon might trade one of those other guys just for more assets. But I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping Nemesnikov and Clayson with the way they've performed under this coach and the way the team is going. They need some bodies, and those guys have certainly played well enough.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm kind of glad that they didn't move Kreider, because I feel like moving forward, I feel like Kreider is going to be – he still has so many good years to be a great player that he is, Yeah. I don't know if they could have got too much of a pull for him. It seemed like that was going to be worth it to trade.
Right. And nobody's untouchable when you're going through this. So
that's true. That's a good point.
If they could have gotten a big haul for him, they would have considered it.
Yeah.
But it would have taken a big haul.
Yeah.
And but the thing that surprised me then was that Jeff Gordon yesterday was non-committal about getting Kreider re-signed beyond next year. So, there's a possibility that Kreider goes through what Hayes went through and what Rick Nash went through.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. I think it's a mistake. I think Kreider's a guy you want to hang on to.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to require a big contract, and he's a little bit older than Hayes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was bringing that up to Mike. I was like, I would have hated to see Kreider go so soon too. It's just I feel like the connection that he has right now with Zibanejad on that top line, I feel like it's a good thing to see moving forward. Even them tossing VZ up in that first line too after he lost Zuccarello. It seems like he's starting to play a little bit better too. So. Yeah. That just goes to show you that if they can keep that up, that could be a good top line having those guys on there.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe Bushnevich eventually goes up there. Maybe next year Kravtsov goes up there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But Zibanejad's turned into a really good number one center. He's not elite in terms of some of the top centers in the league, but he's certainly a legit number one center now. A very good all-around player. And I think Kreider's better now than he ever was.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think his numbers should still be higher.
Yeah. I feel like he.
But I think that's it though. That's their elite talent.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
They need to add more. they need a whole second line and a first line winger maybe, and they need a top pair defense. So, they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, well, going into, in the offseason, do you think that there would be a possibility of the Rangers even maybe re-signing Zuccarello and Hayes, or do you think that's kind of just out of the question now at this point?
Yeah, I think Hayes is out of the question. They don't want to go 6 years with him. They're afraid. And you know what? He's not a great skater. And in a league that's getting faster and younger every year, you worry about a big guy like that who's not a great skater. In years 4, 5, and 6, and I totally understand that, especially a guy whose ceiling is a second line center.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any chance Hayes comes back. Nor do I think he'd want to at this point. He loved it here, but I don't think he was real thrilled with the way this year went in terms of contract talks, etc. And with Zuccarello, I think he only comes back, and there's two conditions. One is that he finds that his market is not very big on July 1st, and two, how much money the Rangers spend on July 1st and what they have left over. So, if he really wants $5 million for 4 or 5 years, then he's not coming back. If he'll take 3 years at $4 million,
he's almost got to be realistic, I think, for the Rangers. At this point, especially with they're going through with this rebuild. I feel like he if he can take a discount and the Rangers can sign him, I think Rangers fans aren't going to mind it, obviously. But I agree with you on the Hayes front too. That's got to be Hayes' biggest weakness for sure, is his skating ability. And and I was reading a couple articles talking about with Gordon, and they couldn't get to that agreement on that length of the contract, and that seems to be the biggest disruption. I feel like that's a good point that you bring up.
No question. And I think the Rangers are going to spend money on July 1st. They're going to go hard after some of those free agents. They may go after some of those offer sheet free agents too, and or if somebody has a problem with cap space, they might be able to swing a trade and use some of their young assets to get a real first line guy in here.
Exactly.
So they're going to be spending a ton of money. They're going to have close to $20 million in cap space if the cap goes up a little bit, and they're going to spend a lot of that. But I don't know if they'll have enough to bring back Zuccarello even for 2 years at $5 million.
Speaking of spending money, I tweeted this at you, I want to say about a month and a half ago, and your answer was 100%. And the question was, do you think the Rangers offer Panarin a contract on July 1st? And this is the second time I'm asking you this. Do you think your answer changes anything less than 100%?
100%.
100. All right, 100%. Same answer. Okay.
I mean, unless obviously if he could sign somewhere first, he could sign back with Columbus first, or he could be traded and he could sign somewhere before he becomes a free agent. I don't think he's going to. His agent has said he won't. His agent said he wants to hit the market. So the Rangers will be all in, and I don't blame them, especially with the cap space that they haven't had cap space in how long?
Yeah,
seriously,
it's been a long time.
So, yeah, I expect them to be all in on him and anybody else who hits the market, like Duchesne, Dzingel. There's going to be a lot of guys available, but they're certainly looking to, and I've used the word accelerate the rebuild, and maybe that's not the right word because they're not looking to win the Stanley Cup next year or the year after.
Yeah.
But they're looking at an opportunity for them to add the top level skill that they need, and they will not get in the draft, picking 10th, and they will not get in the draft. And even if they do get it in the draft, that player won't be ready for a couple of years.
Yeah, this isn't the 2015 draft all over again.
Right, exactly, and they're also not going to be picking in the top 3, so unless they hit the lottery.
Yeah, which we don't have that luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. So I think it's a good move to spend that money and try to get that skill, and knowing that next year will be a year where you try to just make the playoffs.
Exactly.
But if you don't, it's no big deal. But you're in a good position to start bringing along these younger players with roles in second line and third line roles, whereas you have a top line where if you had a Zibanejad, Kreider, Panarin top line, I think you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. As fans, yeah. We love anybody that could score, right? So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing the Rangers get Panarin. I think he obviously, we've seen the damage that he could do when he was on Chicago, and even now he's still so good. So, and he's still young too.
Yeah, actually, I think it was last season he scored the first 4 goals of the season against us.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And I'm just like, really?
He's the Ranger killer now, too. You can add him to the list of guys that tear up the Rangers every time.
Oh, yeah. There are a few, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Tavares, him. Unbelievable.
All right, so...
And then you get all the guys who scored their first NHL.
Oh, yeah. That in itself, that might be 1,000 players long. Just this season alone. All
right, so Rick, you've been covering the Rangers for a long time, so you were obviously a fan and a writer about the team between this rebuild and the one between 97 and 04. Off the top of your head, what is the biggest thing that stands out to you between this one and that one?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not a fan.
Sorry.
Get that straightened. That's okay. I do not root for them, nor do I care if they win or lose.
Fair enough.
I really don't. I'm being honest about it.
Do you have a team?
I've been covering sports for 40
fair
years.
Enough.
I don't root for teams anymore.
Fair enough.
At least you got that out of the way there, and not at the end where you're like, oh, by the way.
I root against some teams. Does that count?
Yeah, well, hey, listen, I think we all do.
I have my fair share.
No, I'm only kidding. The difference between what's going on now and what's going on back then.
Yeah.
Starting in '97, that was just, what went on between '97 and '99, when Wayne Gretzky retired, was just, let's try to build a team around Gretzky. Let's see if we can patch something together, and that failed miserably. Then Gretzky left, and they decided, well, let's spend as much money as we can, and we'll build a bridge to the future, and that failed miserably.
Yeah.
And then Smith and Muckler got fired. Muckler deserved it. Smith didn't. And Glenn Sather came in, and that failed miserably. So, and then he went after every shiny object, and Lindros and Boré.
Yep. I was just bringing that up to Mike too. I was like, it seems that they were back then. It seemed like they were trying to take more shots at the big players at the time, the big free agents. And some guys, I feel like they even got guys in there when they were getting a lot older too. I feel like they were just trying to take a shot, like you said, literally at everybody they can get their hands on.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was just those are the players that they knew.
Yeah.
But they had no plan. There was zero plan, and we saw, that was probably the darkest time in Rangers history, going back to maybe the '60s. That those 4 or 5 or 6 years there were as dark as they get.
Yeah, I was a very young kid at the time, like early 2000s. I'm only 22 now, but I used to go to a lot of those games in the early 2000s, and I remember when we had Mike Dunham as goalie and all that, and it was like, oh my Lord.
Yeah. There was no hope. They were eliminated really early every year.
Yeah.
That was really sad. And some of the coaches that they brought in, Brian Trache, my God. You couldn't go out on the street and find a worse coach. You couldn't go out in the parking lot right now and find a worse. So, yeah, those were the dark. So this is completely different.
Yeah.
I think the first thing, speaking of Brian Trache, I think they've got a great coach right now. I think they have the perfect coach for what they're doing. Now, is he going to be a really good NHL coach when they're ready to compete? We don't know that. There's no way to say that. But for teaching and developing and coaching young players and teaching a team to play hard and to understand that it's undermanned most nights, but that it can still compete, he's been perfect for this team so far. And so that's one thing that they've got really going for them. And then the other thing is, I think Jeff Gorton, who certainly has his detractors, and that list of detractors grew when he traded Zuccarello. I think he's a really smart guy. I think he's laid out a plan. He's been completely transparent with it,
yeah.
And he's going to stick to it. And he's not worried about saving his job because he's going to be safe for the first part of his rebuild at least.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's just going to stay the course. And I think he's a really bright guy. He's got bright people around him like Chris Drury. So So I don't think that 97 to 2004, whatever it was just rudderless, and this group is not.
Yeah, they had, like you said, they definitely have more thought. Even just thinking back to last year, he's made so many good moves for the team. Like even trading them Rick Nash. The return they got for him was unbelievable. They've made a lot of good moves, and I think like as fans moving forward, I think we can definitely trust them.
Yeah, anybody who doesn't trust him should just keep reminding themselves, Zibanejad for Brassard.
Yeah,
and we got a second rounder out of that deal.
We were literally just talking about that like right before we started, earlier.
Just keep repeating that like Dorothy with the "There's no place like home." Because that's Brassard for Zibanejad and a draft pick.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, and who knows where Zibanejad would be right now had he not gotten injured the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And who knows what team he would have been sold to yesterday if he had stayed in Ottawa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, forget it. Yeah, anybody in Ottawa right now has got to be like, oh, God. They were talking about that earlier on NHL Network. They were talking about how they feel bad for a lot of the younger players like Tkachuk on Ottawa, and, how he had to come into that, and he just lost Stone or whatever. So it's
a tire fire, man. With Carlson gone, and it's a tire fire.
Yep. So were you now that you mentioned you're not a fan, I'm going to assume the answer is no. But were you disappointed at any of the returns that the Rangers got
this year?
Yes.
Yeah. No. I thought I pretty much wrote exactly what they were going to get, and
you did.
I said first on a prospect for Hayes. That's what they got. I said they're hoping for a third, but they'll probably get a fourth from McQuaid, which they did. And I thought a second on a prospect for Zuccarello, and instead of the prospect, they tried to hit a home run with those conditional picks.
Yeah. Which almost seems like it's out of the question already with Zuccarello breaking the arm. Dallas. Right. I think that was obviously the biggest shot of that. Dallas making that to the West. But again, you never know. It's
Right.
You never know how things are going to play out.
But if they re-sign him, they get a first, and so that's I think that was a risk worth taking.
Definitely.
And so I thought they did really well with their returns, and you saw first rounders didn't go yesterday. Didn't go anywhere yesterday. I think there was one other one, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of lost.
I honestly think the Hayes deal was the only first rounder moved yesterday.
Yeah, and then there was one before that, I thought, or didn't Mark Stone get it? No, Mark Stone did not get it first.
No, he got Brandstrom in a second with Lindbergh.
Yeah. Right. But I thought there was one other first. But at any rate, they did. They weren't going like hotcakes. And the fact that they got one for a second-line center, I thought was pretty good. I know that that was their asking price, and there were a lot of teams interested, so they were able to leverage that, and they got their first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Winnipeg was desperate for another center, so I think they were actually willing to give it up. So.
Yeah, and they're a win now too. They're a team that's ready to win. So I think it was a good move by them to do that.
And can we also bring up that the condition on the fourth-round pick in the Hayes deal is probably the funniest condition I've ever seen on a draft pick?
Yeah, I don't get that one.
Yeah, on a scale from 1 to 10, how funny would you rate that condition?
Yeah, 2022, right?
2022, a fourth-rounder.
I'll be retired by then. No, I won't. No, I won't.
We were bringing up like the Rangers even getting Lemieux in that trade for Hayes. I mean, it seems like that. I thought that was a pretty good move too, and I don't know if you saw, but it seemed to me like it said a lot of people were saying that they were getting trade offers for him as soon as they got him. You think that was not a bad move for the Rangers? I mean, he seems like he fits a missing void for the Rangers. Like they're missing that character guy that could bring that physical element to the game, and it seems like he has that potential to be that guy.
And plus, you were at Rangers practice this morning, so you got to see him firsthand.
Yeah, I spoke to him, and he's a funny kid. He's a clone of his father. He talks about being a pain in the ass, and David Quinn talks about when you play the game the right way, you're supposed to piss off people, and so I think that's going to be a great match. I think fans that get that part of the game are going to love him.
Yeah, hopefully he's like a Sean Avery for the Rangers.
Exactly, and I think he's probably he might be a better player than Avery.
Yeah. Was he was he very excited to join the Rangers or?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, he thinks that he loved Winnipeg, but they're elite, and he knows that, and he thought that kind of hampered his ice time.
Definitely, yeah.
But then comes here, and he's got a new coach and a rebuilding team, and that he's going to get minutes. He's going to even get some power play time at the start. They're going to see what they have in him, and he thinks that he has a higher ceiling than he showed in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So and his if he's really like his dad, then his dad was pretty good.
Yeah.
He was a pain in the ass. He was a pretty good player.
Yeah.
But I think he's a funny kid. I think he's got a little chip on his shoulder, and he loves to talk about pissing people off.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was bringing up to Mike too. I'm like, we haven't had a guy like that in so long. I feel like even though we're in a rebuilding years, I mean, just even having guys like that on the team, it just makes the game more entertaining to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And even now that Hayes and Zook are gone now, I feel like the Rangers are playing a lot more of their young guys and they're getting more ice time, and I almost feel like it's more entertaining hockey for the fans. Even though it's not necessarily winning hockey, but it seems like it's more entertaining for us to watch. Just seeing what we have for the future, it makes it still fun. I mean, even the Rangers, if Rangers could lose every game, I'm still gonna watch. You know what I mean? So
that's what a diehard fan does. But although you're not one of those.
Wow.
The game on Sunday wasn't well played. The Rangers didn't play particularly well, but man, was that game fun?
Oh yeah, it was entertaining. It was great.
Absolutely.
And another guy who's a pain in the ass is D'Angelo, and he's really, and even Bushnevich ticked off Tom Wilson of all people.
Yes.
So, you want to play that way. You want to play in people's faces. And the only thing I'd caution you a little bit as a fan is that, last year after the deadline, they started out with a little bit of a jump. And, obviously Lundqvist won those first two games for them. But then they ruined their draft pick by winning some games. But then by the end, 20 games is a long time. And by the end of the 20 games, they were dying for it to be over, and they were losing. I think they lost 7 in a row at the end or something like that.
Something.
So I mean, it's fun and it's exciting, and you want to see these kids all get a chance, but it's also it's a tough way to go down the stretch with nothing to play for. And, maybe Quinn will get them to play better for longer.
Yeah, and I'm actually really glad that you brought that up because I was going to ask you about that. Do you think, what's the difference that you sense from the locker room this deadline compared to last deadline, especially considering the coaching change?
Yeah, I think the same level of disappointment with the trade deadline. There's obviously they lost a lot of good friends, and they lost guys that they've competed with for a while, for a long time in some cases, and so there's that. But certainly, I think the writing was on the wall that Vigneault was on his way out.
Yeah.
And some of the guys that had pretty much had it with him, and not that he was a bad coach or anything, but year 5 for a head coach is a lot of years, and players do get tired of that. So, and then he changed too. I thought he withdrew a little bit and he left the team alone. Quinn's not going to be like that, especially if today's practice was intense, man. It was like the first day of training camp. And he's banging into these guys' heads that this is how we have to play. This is how each one of you has to play. And matter of fact, I'll give you a little scoop here today. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Chytil's sitting tomorrow.
We did see that actually.
I want to ask you about that. Now, is it with Chytil? I feel like he's been on him specifically.
Yeah.
A lot this season. Now, is it something that we were wondering? Is it something that does he just not do the drills hard enough in practice, or is it something that he just sees in the game, or is it just a combination of both of those things? He just seems like he's not bringing that gritty element to his game, or.
Yeah, I can't speak to the practices because it doesn't appear to me that he doesn't practice hard.
Yeah.
But in some cases, like with Buchnevich and D'Angelo earlier, he wasn't seeing what he wanted in practice with those guys. And that's an important thing in Quinn's book. But I think Chytil's last 2 games were pretty weak.
Yeah.
And that effort needs to be up. And Quinn, the 2 things that he said today were, one, part of that is being 19 and habits are hard to break, especially at that age. And 2, he said he may not go back in as quickly as he did last time.
Yeah.
So he's really trying to push this across to this kid. Because when he plays hard, he's pretty good for a 19-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. He has his moments where, we've seen it even against Boston and Chicago, that back-to-back where he literally just skated coast to coast the entire team and scored top shelf. He has those moments where he's unbelievably good, and then like you said, he died off. He dies off every couple of games, and so that's a good point that you bring up. Like, I could see why Quinn is on his case, and he's only 19, so I feel like it's almost better to have Quinn on him now and force him to play better. Just because he's young, you can't really use that as an excuse.
Right, but you want to build those habits in a kid that you see has a lot of upside and has a chance to be a pretty special player if he plays hard. And like you mentioned, those 2 goals back-to-back games. You can't just have that.
Of course.
Because you're not going to have that. You're not going to do that every game. You're not going to do that twice a week.
Yeah.
You need to have more parts of your game. And like I said earlier, Quinn is a teacher above all. He teaches each one of them individually every day. And I think and Chytil likes him, and he loves Chytil. So it's just a matter of getting through that kid's head.
Yeah,
and it'll happen. It'll happen.
Yeah, it seems like that's a case, and that's almost like a good thing. I feel like with Vigneault, to bring him up again, but I feel like he almost like had it out for certain players. It seemed like when he was coach. I don't know if that was the case, but I don't know. Even with D'Angelo, I feel like he never wanted to really bring him up into the lineup and let him play, and he was always sending him down to the minors. And I don't know if you got that same feeling, but. And then now with D'Angelo, I see like you could see the potential that he has. Sorry to cut you off, but
no, that's fine. Yeah, you're right, and he does have potential. I think Quinn saw that very quickly. Now, the ironic part is that if he didn't require waivers, he would have been in Hartford at the start of the year.
Yep.
So, who knows how this year would have gone. But the fact is, he didn't go to Hartford. He didn't get hurt this year like he did last year, and he got an opportunity. He eventually got an opportunity, and it took a while for Quinn to get through to him, but he did. And the kid's a player now.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was a chance in heck that he'd be here next year, and I certainly didn't think he was going to be an issue for the expansion draft, as people were saying.
Yeah,
I thought he'd be long gone, but he's, I think right now he's certainly in their 6 on opening night next year. So I think they've done a good job with him, and he deserves most of the credit.
Yeah, I mean he brings certain parts of the game, like putting the puck on net, which I feel like he does that a lot, and I feel like Shea has been doing that a lot recently. And like just as a joke, I mean, I feel like does Quinn get on them like at the practice today? Like, was he yelling at them to put pucks on net? Because I feel like he always brings that up, that he's always telling them to shoot, but it's something about having the Rangers jersey on that players just don't want to shoot the puck. I never understand it.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either. And, but that was always an issue with, especially the top end guys like Zuccarello and Hayes.
Yeah.
And I think that, and Brassard before him and Stepan before
Yeah,
him.
exactly. Yep.
And I think that will be an issue when Panarin gets here.
Yeah, I just don't know what it is. It's like is it in a clause in the contract like they can't shoot the puck on net?
Yeah, and it's also in the clause that the coach has a heart attack because you won't shoot the puck on net. And this guy, he says it all the time. He wants pucks on net.
Yeah.
But the things he does in practice are more like, when he has a lot of one-on-one battles and he wants you to go through the guy, not around. He wants you to have your stick in the right position. He wants you to not be turning your head and not be turning away from checks. He emphasizes all these little things that are all right. They're all the right things.
It's like smart. It's smarter hockey. It's using your head in the situations.
Absolutely, and then using your body.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you have to, he demands that you use both, and you have to play smart and you have to play hard.
Definitely.
And if you make mistakes playing smart and hard, he'll live with that.
That's a great point.
Yeah, actually, on getting shots through, we actually have a nickname for Shattenkirk, and we call him Mr. Shin Pads because that's all he seems to shoot into.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable with that guy.
He's had a rough time. He's had a rough 2 years there. It's too bad. He's a tremendous guy, just a great guy, but he's really had a rough 2 years here.
Yeah, he's struggling so far. I mean, we would love to see him pick his play up. I mean, it is what it is at this point. We have him, so.
Yeah, but Barry Trotz was right. He's not a first pair defenseman. And right now, he's not a second pair defenseman.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
And he's kind of making the top money too. Well, he took a discount for the Rangers, but I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing that we always bring up with him is that it's more aggravating when you're paying him that amount of money to be a top line guy, and he's kind of playing like a third line guy.
Yeah, and you don't expect him to be a top defender, but
no,
we weren't.
But you live with that if he gives you the offense and the power play. And he has not yet. And, to be quite honest, Tony DeAngelo is a better power play point man than he is right now.
Yeah.
So
100%.
That's it certainly is an issue, but there's 2 more years left. And if they have to buy him out after 1 more, so be it. And if they don't, so be it too, because they'll have cap space in 2 years when he comes off the book and Smith comes off the book and Lundqvist comes off the book.
Yeah.
They're going to have plenty of money to spend again. So they'll live with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of buyouts, I wouldn't put it past them to buy Smith out after next season because the buyout damage would be pretty minimal, to be honest with you. I looked it up on Cap Friendly.
Yeah, I think there will be 1 or 2 buyouts next summer, especially if any of these young defensemen are ready. If Lindgren or Hayek or Rykov are here and ready to go, or if John Miller turns pro, I don't think he will, but he might. I think that it'll depend on what they have in terms of defensemen.
Yeah. It sounds like we have so many defensive prospects in the system, which is a good thing too.
Yeah. There are a ton of them, and the people they drafted last June are getting really good marks for what they're doing this season.
Yeah.
So but again, defensemen take time. Hayek's taking time down there, and he will take time. Rykov, I don't know anything about because he's played over in Russia the whole time on
Yeah.
a really good team. So we don't know what he is. But and Lundqvist, whatever his name is, this guy played in Sweden now. He's a very good defenseman. But he's probably a year or two away too.
Yeah, honestly, like we're full in on the rebuild right now, so I honestly don't mind watching these prospects develop because I wouldn't want to rush them because if you say you look at Edmonton and they literally try and rush every single top prospect they get and look at how bad that's turned out except for Connor McDavid.
Right. And and it's okay to when a guy is ready or when he's top elite skill to rush him in. I don't have any problem with what Buffalo did with a couple of their guys too. You rush them in, that's fine. 19, 18, 19.
Yep.
But when a kid's not that elite player, and you don't see defensemen really. I mean, Dahlin is an exception.
I was just about to bring him up.
Yeah, you don't see defensemen just come in and be stars.
Yeah.
At the age, it just doesn't happen. So I think they're doing it right. I think these kids will take time. I do think, a lot of people are saying that their ceilings, none of them has this top pair ceiling, except for maybe Miller right now.
Yep.
So we'll see. But there's nothing wrong with stockpiling them, and you hope you hit a couple of home runs, and you're gonna have a couple of swing and misses.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly think that it was the perfect time for the Rangers to load up on defensemen because from what I'm hearing on this draft class, defensemen are very weak.
Yeah. I haven't gone there yet. But I imagine that you're probably right because, I think there are a lot of forwards that teams are kind of licking their chops on. And I've heard from some scouts that it's pretty deep. It's a pretty deep draft. Like you're not going to get McDavid this year.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. But there are those top two guys are pretty.
Yeah, and that works in the Rangers' favor considering they have 10 picks in the draft.
Yeah, and who knows what they'll do with those picks? If they'll move up or if they'll. And like I said earlier, there's also the lottery, and who knows? Maybe, maybe once every 79 years you do get lucky.
Yeah.
Our luck can't be any worse than Vancouver, who seems to drop 2 spots every year. So,
exactly.
We wanted to tie in, the Rangers with the rest of the league here for a second. In your opinion, what do you think was the biggest move of the whole NHL trade deadline?
Well, I think everybody thought it would be, and it turned out to be Stone. But I thought that he would go first. I thought he was going to go midweek.
Yeah.
And then everything was going to tumble. And instead, he kind of brought up the rear, which that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that was the biggest one. I don't really think there were that many major deals. People made a big deal out of Wayne Simmons. I've watched Wayne Simmons the last couple of years, and I'm sorry, he's not the same player.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, really remains to be seen how they fit in with their new teams, how good their team actually is.
Yeah.
But you draw that conclusion in June.
Definitely.
When you see who's still standing.
Yeah, exactly. You have to let the playoffs almost play out in a way.
But I was a little surprised that Tampa didn't do anything else, and they probably don't need to.
Yeah,
they're pretty loaded. I thought they might dump a Callahan contract on somebody.
I honestly thought that they were gonna trade a mid to late rounder for a depth defenseman, especially on the right side. But
they could have. I think McQuaid would have fit in really well there. But I do question their third pair.
Yeah.
Other than that, they don't have many holes, honestly. And the other thing that surprised me a little bit was that the Islanders did nothing.
We were talking about that.
They're another team. A couple of my close friends are Islanders fans, and they're not happy with the trade deadline.
Yeah, but that's Lou. Lou goes to his own drummer. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a Stanley Cup contender. I don't think if they had gotten Mark Stone, they're a Stanley Cup contender.
They still have plenty of way to go for sure.
Yeah, they have a long way to go.
I mean, even I don't know how you feel about the moves that Columbus made, but I'm still not 100% convinced on them either.
No, I'm not either. I truly wonder what the heck they're doing, going all in.
Yeah, they're really going all in.
I mean,
right now.
I highly believe that they can finally get out of the first round right now, but getting past the second round is going to be the biggest question.
Right, but who are they going to play in that first round?
Yeah,
that's true. That all depends too.
Forget about it.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be Pittsburgh. They could give Pittsburgh fits, I suppose. They could give the Islanders fits, but are they getting by Tampa, or they get? I guess they could beat Toronto, maybe, if they grind them out. But yeah, again, they're all in. They're going to lose a couple of those guys, if not all of them, this summer, and that's going to really
the
set
risk
them back.
is.
Yeah.
The risk seems like higher than the reward here.
I give him credit, though. Kekalainen has balls, because if they didn't do anything this offseason, this trade deadline, and say they did trade Panarin and Bobrovsky, they wouldn't have another opportunity for at least another 4 or 5 years to make a serious, impactful playoff run.
Yeah, it was a tough call. They certainly don't want to go rebuild at this point, and they certainly think they're a good team that need to get better. But to think that they're going to win a Stanley Cup is, in my opinion, a little crazy. Unless Bobrovsky goes absolutely nuts.
And Bobrovsky does have a proven playoff track record that's not very good.
Exactly, and so does the franchise. But who knows? Maybe everybody, Tortorella and Kekalainen, get fired after the season if they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And if they go in the first round, it's going to be a complete, crash and burn.
Oh, absolutely.
And I looked at Dallas too. I was like, "What the heck is Dallas doing? Why are they giving up stuff for Matt Zuccarello, who's going free agent?" And they're barely a playoff team.
Yeah.
But I guess that their GM thinks he's going to get fired if he doesn't make the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on top of it, Zuccarello ends up breaking his arm, and he's out for 4 weeks now. So
and Ben also got hurt too.
Yeah. Poor Zuccarello.
I know, that's what we were saying. We're like, poor guy, man. He gets traded from the Rangers, then he breaks his arm. Like, what's next?
He had like a goal and assist. And
I know.
Three in that game.
I'm sure Dallas fans were like, "Oh yeah, this is the piece," and then bam, broken arm.
No, they need a couple more pieces. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, for sure. And they don't. And talk about guys, Filip Chytil doesn't try hard. How about Ben and Sagan some nights? I mean, my God.
Oh yeah, they're just strictly offense. I feel like
I would have wanted off that team if I was on that team, especially earlier in the season.
Yeah, I could see that, but. They're a borderline playoff team, and that was probably a pretty safe condition that they're not going to make the second round or get past the second round and have to give up the first round pick.
Yeah, I mean I feel like the Western wild card race is just out of control. I feel like there's so many teams that could just swoop in there and potentially grab a spot. Even Arizona's only like a couple points back from the second wild card, and they're playing with like 4 injured players right now. So
you win 3 in a row out there, and you're going to be great.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, just don't pull Anaheim and lose like 17 out of 19.
Yeah, exactly.
No, they couldn't have done that at a worse possible time. But I wouldn't sleep on the Blues to make a minor playoff run, and don't sleep on the Sharks at all. That's all I'm putting out there.
Yeah, the Sharks. I would agree with that. The Sharks are always going to be a dangerous team. I don't know. I picked Nashville in the preseason, so I'm going to stick with that. Winnipeg's pretty impressive. You never know what the heck you're going to get with Vegas.
I know it's unbelievable with them. You can't even really go off any like pattern of the past, considering they only had one other season, which they were almost won the cup. So it's crazy.
I still think that was an overachievement making it to the final. I still think they should have lost to San Jose in the second round.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. But they did it. So
yeah.
They're a team they're going to be dangerous. And I'll tell you another team that's going to be dangerous if they get in is Chicago.
I know. They're rolling right now too.
See,
and they're about to get Crawford back as well.
I would like to think that, but then I remember 2017 where they finished top seed in the Western Conference and then got absolutely demolished by Nashville first round.
Yeah, no question. There's no question.
Yeah, but that's what you never know.
The fact of the matter is their top guys are really playing well right now.
Yeah, I mean, Kane is.
And they need depth, obviously, but their top guys are.
Yeah, Kane's got 93 points.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He's just unbelievable.
And in the night that they played at the Garden, I thought he mailed it in, and then all of a sudden somebody put a rocket up his butt. But he's so skilled.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, even going back to last year's playoffs, I'm not gonna lie. I thought Nashville was going to beat Winnipeg. I had Nashville going to the Cup final again last year, but they got beat by Winnipeg. I was actually a little caught off guard by that.
Yeah, Winnipeg's pretty good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Winnipeg is good. I mean, and just like Mike was saying, I mean, they could have easily beaten Vegas if it wasn't for Marc-Andre Fleury's performance that entire series. So that's the thing with Vegas. You never know you never know how they're gonna play. I mean, Fleury earlier in his career, not so good in the playoffs. Now seems to have stepped his game up in the playoffs.
Might be as good as they get in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I still think that's Henrik Lundqvist, but we won't see that for a little bit, if at all, which I hope is not the case.
Don't forget Mike Richter missed the playoffs how many years in a row at the end of his career?
Yeah.
Like 6 more than that.
Yeah, the Rangers made a lot of questionable moves, I feel like, towards the end of people's careers, like trading Leach to Boston. That was kind of like one of those moves where it's just like, have some respect.
On his birthday.
Yeah, I know, really. Like, have some respect on the players.
I feel like a spoiled fan because I started watching hockey in general in 2011, and without any prior knowledge, I'm like, I'm picking the Rangers. This is my team. So
that worked out.
Yeah, it almost worked out perfectly, but it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, they had quite a run there. And, people who complained throughout those 5 years don't deserve to be fans because that's as good as it gets without winning a cup.
I know, seriously.
Yeah, literally.
That run.
Yeah.
And then you have playoff round after playoff round. How many game sevens?
Yeah, I know.
The two of those years you were the best team in the league during the regular season. You get to the Stanley Cup final. You don't get that kind of 5-year run. The Rangers certainly haven't had many of them. In fact, I don't remember any. Maybe in the early 70s.
I mean, they technically had a 3-year run in the 90s, but they missed the playoffs one of those years.
Right. And then if you go 94, 95, 96, 97, they played a lot of playoff series, but they weren't the best team in the league for a couple of those years. But yeah, take 94 out of the equation. 95, 96, 97 was just a nice little era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad I was born in 96 and missed the cup run. But
yeah, same here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Don't rub it in that we're that young.
Well, that's it's been fun. I don't mean to cut you guys
off. Oh
no,
it's
actually
okay,
no. That was a pretty perfect amount. So.
Yeah, we appreciate it so much, man. Thanks.
Yeah, hey, anytime at all. I'm glad we finally got to do it. And
yeah, I apologize on the short notice again.
No problem at all. No problem at all. We'll do it again. Maybe we'll do it after the season.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. You said it. We didn't. So you better keep your word on that.
Yeah. Well, I'll see if this first check clears.
All right. So, do you want to give yourself a little plug on the way out?
Well, just if anybody's not reading The Athletic at this point, you're missing out because in a time when newspapers and news outlets ignore hockey, the Athletic is all in on hockey. We have 31 beat writers and about 50 other writers that cover hockey, and you just can't get this kind of coverage anywhere else. And I'm not just saying that because I work there. I'm saying that as a hockey fan because it's wall-to-wall hockey. We don't do, the typical game stories, but we do stuff that nobody else is doing.
Exactly.
And we do it coast to coast in two countries, and it's pretty awesome. So if you're not on The Athletic yet, I suggest you give it a try.
I can attest to this because I actually have a subscription.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Hey, you guys put out good stuff, so I'm gonna keep reading it. So especially you.
Thank you. And it's not just hockey, but hockey is exceptional because of the lack of hockey coverage elsewhere.
100%.
But I think it's an awesome spot.
Oh, absolutely is. And I just wanna point out that you send out 3 specific tweets every single game, and I look forward to the tweet every time. It's after every single period, and it's the magic 2 words. Good period? I enjoy that tweet every single game night.
Thank you. One of the coaches, I forget which one, used to say we had a good period, and John Delapina used to work for the Daily News, now works for the NHL. And we grabbed a hold of that, and we started asking each other at the end of every period, "Good period?" And so it became a funny joke. John and I also, during that dark stretch from 97 to 2004, would count the periods remaining in the season starting opening night.
You sound like my math professor who counts down the amount of seconds remaining in the class time.
Exactly. So we were, starting game, 82 times 3, whatever that number is, we'd start with that number on opening night, and we would count down the periods.
Well, then as Rangers fans, we got to appreciate that it hasn't gone that bad for us recently.
No.
So we better count our blessings.
Yeah, so you get 60 left.
All right, Rick. Well, thank you very much once again for coming on. Like, this is awesome for us.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure. Anytime at all.
All right. Well,
good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Oh, wait, one last question before you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a communications major with a minor in sports management. Do you have any tips on getting a job, especially in the field that you're in? This isn't just for me. Well, this is just for anybody who might be listening.
I mean, I had somebody ask me this the other day, and the main thing is don't go in newspapers. I did that, and I got my butt kicked out the door 2 years ago. So newspapers is it's pretty much a dead end.
Yeah, it's dying off.
If you go to the New York Times or Washington Post, you might be okay, but it's a dead end. Some of them have pretty good subscription things going now, and if you get into one of those, you're in a good spot. But I would really just lean toward the electronic and lean toward the online product, and then just get your nose in there, and don't be afraid to ask people questions. Don't be afraid to apply for jobs that you think might be out of reach, and be aggressive. I certainly wasn't, but I'm not 22 in this day and age. When I was 22, there were newspapers everywhere, and they were all hiring, and they were all paying well. So it's not like that anymore. But I would, you have to be a little aggressive now, and go for what you want to get.
All right, and speaking of going online, I actually just wrote an article, and just to save time, I'll tweet it at you, and I hope you can give it a read.
Will do. I'd be happy to. Thank you.
All right. Well, and thank you very much for that.
Thanks again.
All right, everyone.
Listen, just one more thing. Next time, don't tell me how old you are. I want to hear it.
If our birthdays haven't passed yet, no promises.
Okay. Have a good one, guys.
All right, take it easy, man.
You too, Rick. Thank you very much. All right, and that was Rick Carpiniello from The Athletic, and that was an awesome episode.
That was great. I mean, it's always great having, talking to somebody that has the, inside hand and been a writer for so many years, and he's got a lot of knowledge, and it's always great to have somebody like that on.
Yeah, and
it's a learning experience for us too,
And this is just a tip for anybody who wants to start a sports podcast. I literally tweeted at Rick on Twitter, and it kind of just, everything kind of went on from there. You'd be surprised how many people would actually be willing to help you out, like coming on a podcast and stuff. So just, it doesn't hurt to tweet somebody. Just don't be an idiot and say, you're coming on the podcast next week, no exceptions. Just ask them nicely, and they might be able to help you out. I tweeted Rick twice because he didn't respond to me the first time. But I wasn't going to tweet him a third time because then it would have been a little, I would have just lost all hope at that point. But, all right, this has been Backup Blue Shirts, episode 9, and
Adam Graves.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, we got
So this podcast is dedicated to the legendary number 9, Adam Graves.
That's right.
I have been your host, Michael Sparacino, a.k.a. Shades, alongside my co-host, Brendan Mulroy, a.k.a. Mulgoon.
A.k.a. the Big Goon, I'll say it.
He wanted me to leave that out, so he put that in there. Okay. And thank you very much for listening. Talk to you hopefully next week. We'll see if we can get our shit together. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.